What is happening, guys, and welcome back to the channel, where for today's review, thanks to Shozy Store, we're going to be checking out the Lucky Cat Extreme Trans ET-01 Transformers Bumblebee movie, Bumblebee. Now, if you would like to pick one of these up for yourself, then definitely be sure to head down to those links in the description box below. And as we check out Bumblebee, the robot mode is so tidy and is seriously super impressive. This has to be one of the smallest Transformers I own in my entire collection, yet is easily one of the most accurate figures we've so far seen based on that 2018 movie. And it's awesome to finally see these third-party companies introducing more and more live-action movie designs into this MP Legend Scale lineup, and for this being one of Lucky Cat's first entries, I am super excited to check out their upcoming Optimus Prime, because the details of this Bumblebee are pretty much dead on to the CG model, and the design is just awesome. I really liked how Bumblebee appeared in his solo movie. So as we check out the details, the head and the chest in particular, I think look awesome, but check out the armaments that we have for the forearms, the tiny pieces of circuitry inside the shoulder pad, and the tiny little indicator lights on the hips. The leg design is so accurate to the film, and it's honestly kind of crazy from an engineering perspective, because the feet are completely formed from the front parts of the Volkswagen, yet there really aren't any obvious pieces the first time you check them out, and the side parts of the door do kind of compress and flip around to form the back and the sides of the legs. It is just so well engineered. Check out the back, for the most part no excess vehicle mode kibble. We even get the movie accurate door wings, which I think are a super sweet touch, and the back part of the head has been accurately sculpted to match the CG design. So a very, very impressive tiny figure, and it's about to get even better once we check out the articulation. So due to the way he has been engineered, the head is on an extendable hinge joint, so you can swivel this here up to dip the head down, to dip it up, and to rotate it left to right. The shoulders are on double ball joints, so these can be risen and lowered, moved forward, moved backward, moved out to the sides. There is then a bicep cut which can go all the way around, double jointed elbows, which are so impressive for a figure of this scale. I mean, check that out. That is awesome. The wrists are also on ball joints. The waist can rotate, although you're going to want to grab a hold of the hips, bring them forwards a little bit to maximize that range. The hip articulation is incredible. So this can kick all the way forwards that far, and even check out the details that we have on the inside part of the leg, including this tiny little metallic silver disc. Wicked attention to detail. They'll then also kick back roughly to that far, as well as out to the sides. There is a double hinge joint here at the knee, which can bend a little past 90, and then finally for the foot, it can rock forwards, it can rock backwards, tilt side to side, rotate all the way around, and then as we flip this guy around to the back, the door wings are also on ball joints, so you can move them out of the way so that you can maximize the arm articulation, or you could completely hinge them up to kind of give it a throwback to the original 2007 movie Bumblebee. So overall, I am incredibly impressed. This may just be one of my favorite figures of this design release to date, even causing for some tough competition stacked up alongside the Transcraft Beetle. Now, as we check out Bumblebee's accessories, this guy can most definitely sting like a bee. So in addition to the pair of fisted hands, there are also a pair of relaxed hands, which I think are great, as this version of Bumblebee was super emotive in the movie, so these are a great inclusion. But despite how cute this bee was, when he needed to be a badass, he absolutely could be. So it's sick to see the inclusion of the battle-ready battle mask. And I think this has to be my favourite design for Bee's mask. It just looked so awesome in the film. And this rendition, again, for the scale, has been so nicely sculpted and painted. And to go along with that, we see the return of his Stinger Blaster, which I think has to be my favourite weapon of all time for this guy. And the integration is really cool. So it basically pegs into a tiny slot on his forearm, and from certain angles really does give you the impression that, much like in the film, it has converted out of the forearm armour and the hand. So you can even pick out the tiny little fingers wrapping around the barrel of the gun, and as we check out the inside part, the fist is very nicely concealed. So that is awesome. But if Bee's Stinger Blaster gets damaged in battle, then he can deploy these blades, and these look great. I believe this one is inspired more by the concept art, whereas this one is pretty spot on to the one that we see him facing off against Shatter with in that final battle. So accessory wise, he pretty much comes with everything that we saw in the movie, which again, considering the scale, I thought was super impressive, and the way they all integrate seamlessly into the robot mode is awesome. Now, checking out some comparisons for this Bumblebee, we have two Hasbro core class figures, Bumblebee from Dark of the Moon and Bumblebee from Transformers Legacy. He is even smaller than Hasbro's smallest scale class, so it's crazy, especially when you consider just how accurate and how many components are packed inside this guy for the transformation. Here is how he sizes alongside the Bumblebee movie Shockwave and the Transformers The Last Knight Legion class Megatron. Metagate's Legend Scale Bumblebee movie Optimus Prime. Now, I do know that Lucky Cat also have plans to release an Optimus Prime in their line, and it does seem to be a little more accurate when compared to this one, but at the moment, scale-wise, these do seem to closely match what we saw from the movie. And here's quite an interesting one. So, this is the official Studio Series Deluxe Bumblebee, based on the exact same design as this one. Earthrise Netflix Bumblebee, Rise of the Beasts Bumblebee, Bumblebee movie Shatter and Dropkick, and then finally the Rise of the Beast Voyager class Optimus Prime. And I really think that it's with this comparison you can begin to understand just how small this tiny little Bumblebee is. Now, as we check out Bee's transformation, one thing that I must stress to those of you that have maybe never picked up an MP Legend Scale figure is that it is exactly what it says on the tin. There is basically a masterpiece transformation packed inside an incredibly small transformer, so most of the transformation is going to be quite fiddly, although I will try my best to show it off in as much detail as possible. So, first up, you are going to want to take a hold of the chest, bring this here forwards, then take the headlights and hinge these here inwards, just like that. With that step complete, hopefully it should free up all of the joints inside. And this by itself I thought was so impressive, because check out how many multi-layered joints there are stored inside this guy's chest. Once you reach the very top, you'll then want to take this panel, spin it all the way around, and then hinge it up just like this. There's then a second ball joint here that you'll also want to rotate all the way around, and then finally a third one right at the very base. So make sure you have extended this here backwards and then completely spin this here all the way around, so at the top it should be completely yellow. Now, as we flip back to the underside, you'll want to grab Bee's head, rotate it here all the way around so the front is now facing the back, and now we can begin work on the arms, which I do find to be quite fiddly. So you are going to want to take this bicep joint and rotate it so the hinge joint is facing outwards. You'll then want to take a hold here of the ball joint, rotate this here like that, and compress both the hinge and the ball joint over the top of each other. Do the exact same here for this side. So grab that bicep joint, rotate it so the hinge joint is facing outwards, then take the ball joint, rotate this piece here around, and then compress both of these joints over the top of one another, just like that. And then the next step definitely is kind of challenging, because you're going to want to take this double ball jointed joint and spin this around. So I found it easier if you extend it and then swivel it here all the way around just like that. So to show it from a different perspective, you're going to want to extend this here up a little bit and then begin to rotate it, swing it all the way around to the front. With that complete, we can then begin making sure that everything is nice and lined up just like this. The next step would be to then come here to this hinge joint. So right now it is fully extended for robot mode. For vehicle mode, you're actually going to want to compress it. So just take it and shift it down all of the way just like that. Now we can begin work on the legs. So for this, I like to grab a hold of this little panel and hinge it here outwards, spin around to this side and do the same. So hinge this panel here out to the sides. With that now complete, this middle piece is on a double hinge joint, so you'll want to extend this here all the way up so it's completely straightened out, and then take a hold of these pieces and spin them around. So again, the engineering for such a small figure is crazy, and I definitely think Hasbro can approach this design again in their Studio Series line, because if this figure's able to be this accurate, I'm pretty certain that with a deluxe class they could make it look a little better. The next step would be to then come to this piece, pull it towards yourself very slightly like that, just to detach that little tab from underneath the foot piece. With that now complete, we can spin this here all the way around, just like this. The next step would be to then take the wheel at the sole of the foot, extend this here up like this, and then you're going to want to rotate this all the way around, just like that. So the front part of the foot, the gunmetal piece, is perfectly aligned with this grey piece of the front bumper. Then we can just collapse this here down, just like that. Then what you'll do is extend this knee joint here all the way out. You have to make sure you do this or it will cause for some issues in just a bit. Now we can rotate here at the knee, take this panel, spin this here all the way around, and you can see there's a tiny little tab that's going to tuck on the underside of this piece. Now, this can be kind of fiddly, and 9 times out of 10 during later steps, it may find itself detabbing, but that is roughly the position that it's going to want to be in. Repeat the same process on the opposite side. Bang! With that now complete, we can flip up here to the top, which again I've found to be quite challenging. So originally these pieces were like this. You're going to want to take this, spin this here up just like that, and then this entire section is held together via a double ball joint. So you're going to want to bring this down. There is this tiny little notch, so you have to make sure that this is underneath this notch. Then we can begin to slide it up. There is a tiny little tab that's going to slide into that slot, so bring that around, snap that there into place, and do the same here for this side. So originally that was like this. Take it, pull it forwards, and then utilize this double ball joint. Bring it down first of all, and make sure that it slides underneath that notch. We can then begin to spin it all the way around until it does snap there into place. Now we can begin work on combining the two halves, which is definitely the most challenging part about the transformation. So I'll do it first of all on one side, take a hold of the hip, bring this down. Now the fists are actually going to slide underneath the front part of the vehicle mode, so just make sure that tucks under there like that. As you flip here to the underside, on this part of the wheel is a tab that's actually going to peg itself into a slot on the thigh. So line that up and snap it into place just like that. And then the rest of the transformation really is just lining the doors up with the tabs. You can see we have this little tab here that's going to slide into that slot. So that is pretty much one part of the vehicle fully transformed. Do the exact same on the opposite side again. Bang! With that now complete, again, you'll want to make sure that all of these tabs are lined up. Personally, I would recommend to keep a hold of this so that they don't go nowhere and give the entire front part of the vehicle a nice squeeze. Now, I'm going to be honest, guys, I have found that it takes quite a long time to really get everything to stay into place, and that is probably the most frustrating part about the entire transformation, is that it will work, but it does take quite a long time. I mean, as you saw, I really had to apply quite a bit of pressure, and then for a few finishing touches, you'll want to take this piece, flip it up, and then slide it along this joint so that it perfectly matches up with this rear piece. Spin around to this side and do the same. So flip this here up, slide it along this joint until it does perfectly line up. And here we have Bumblebee fully transformed into his Volkswagen Bug mode, and this guy is tiny. If you thought the robot mode was small, this thing is like micro scale. I think it's no bigger than 6 centimeters in terms of length, and check this out. I quite literally have the power of the sun in the palm of my hand. It's seriously impressive how much engineering is crammed inside a robot mode, which really is no bigger than 2.5–3 inches tall. These third-party companies are just wizards when it comes to engineering, and again, I am so excited to check out their upcoming Optimus Prime. The vehicle mode, all things considered, I think is a pretty decent representation of what we saw in the movie, and it was really cool to see B kind of take on his original G1 alt form. In some ways, I kind of wish he kept it for Transformers Rise of the Beasts, but detail-wise, very nicely painted and sculpted from the back, from the side, from the front. This is what B looks like from the underside, and all 4 wheels are pinned on, so technically he should be able to roll out into battle, although I am yet to have a successful transformation attempt where they do so. Instead, he just kind of scrapes along the ground. So unfortunately, he's not going to have too much luck evading Shatter and Dropkick. And as we check out some vehicle mode comparisons, it's really here that I hope to show you guys just how tiny this Bumblebee is. So again, we have 2 Hasbro Core Class figures, and this Bumblebee is even smaller than the Legacy Core Class release. It's seriously crazy from an engineering perspective just how accurate that robot mode is, and that he can transform into a VW Bug, which is smaller than both of these 2 guys. Next up, we have the Bumblebee movie Core Class Shockwave and the Transformers 5 Legion Class class Megatron. And again, super small, but if I were to put him in a scale class, I'd say he would probably fit in best with these Legion scale releases, although because Shockwave has always been a bigger character than Bumblebee, maybe the scale between these two wouldn't really work out that bad. And then for two deluxe class officially licensed Volkswagen Beetles, we have the version based on Earthrise and the one based on the actual Bumblebee movie. Now, to think this is not officially licensed, again, I think is crazy because the proportions are pretty much spot on to the significantly larger deluxe class offering. Again, it's just so crazy from an engineering perspective how accurate this tiny little figure is. Here is how he sizes up alongside Metagate's Optimus Prime. Now, as I mentioned, Lucky Cat have plans to release their own, so I imagine in truck mode they will probably be better to scale with each other. And then finally, here we have the Rise of the Beasts Voyager class Optimus Prime, absolutely dwarfed, but I guess this technically could be G1 accurate because B in that series was always way smaller than in the movieverse. And so, wrapping up on this review for the Lucky Cat Extreme Trans ET-01 Transformers Bumblebee movie, Bumblebee. The engineering, I think, is really what makes this figure so impressive. This guy is tiny. As I've said, he's by far one of the smallest Transformers I own in my entire collection, yet is easily among some of the more accurate. The robot mode is near enough a one-to-one match to the actual CG design. The articulation is up to par with what you would expect from a leader class. The transformation is just crazy, definitely on par with an actual masterpiece, and at times can be challenging, especially to get everything locking in at one point. But I definitely think the vehicle mode is worth it. Much like the robot mode, very accurate to how it did appear in the movie. It's probably the weaker out of these two modes, but that's to be expected. There are a lot of individual pieces here, so the vehicle mode is not going to be as clean and pristine as a deluxe figure, and all things considered, this is a great start for Lucky Cat's MP Legend Scale line, and I really cannot wait to see what characters they can bring out after their upcoming Optimus Prime. I would love to get your thoughts on this Bumblebee down in the comment section below. Is this something you guys plan on picking up? And until my next review, I want to thank you all so much for watching. Transform and roll out!